Of all the mobs in Minecraft, the Sniffer is the single biggest waste of potential. Set aside everything you know about it and just think about the original concept. A long extinct creature that the player brings back into the world of Minecraft, digging up seeds that give us a glimpse at a past so distant that it might as well be a different world, unlocking a whole new area in Minecraft's progression. It's safe to say that that isn't what we got. And while mobs like the glow squid and armadillo get a lot of flack, their related features are much more proportional to how unique and important they are in the game. But the Sniffer is different. The Sniffer promises us a whole new world, and instead we got 2 plants. Currently, there isn't enough of a reason to engage with the Sniffer as a mechanic. The majority of players just end up getting 1 or 2 of these things, putting them in a small enclosure, and forgetting about them. That is, if they choose to hatch one at all. To figure out how to fix this, let's first look at how this mob currently works. To hatch a Sniffer, you must first find an egg. These are only located in suspicious sand at warm ocean ruins, excavated using a brush. Once you have an egg, place it down and wait for it to hatch. After 40 minutes, or 20 minutes if you place it on a moss block, the Snifflet hatches. 20 minutes later, it grows up and starts sniffing for seeds. This is where the issues begin. Once they fully grow, that's the end of your meaningful interactions with the Sniffer. As long as it has enough space, it will keep digging up the same 2 seeds forever. Instead, the player should be much more involved in this process. Getting an animal from thousands of years ago to adapt to an entirely different environment should not be as simple as placing down a block and waiting for an hour. Additionally, the selection of plants that the Sniffer unlocks is far too limited. While the torchflower and pitcher plant are by no means bad additions, a feature of this size should bring in a whole new variety of plants, ranging from purely decorative to actually having function, like drip leaves and lily pads. With these 2 issues in mind, here are my proposed changes. First, Sniffers dig up different seeds depending on the biome that they're in. The plants that these seeds grow into would be themed around the biome, not just from places you'd expect, like forests, jungles, and swamps, but also more challenging biomes to house a Sniffer in, like mushroom islands, lush caves, and even something really difficult, like soul sand valleys. Second, nurturing a Sniffer to the point that it can dig up seeds would require much more involvement from the player. Obtaining and hatching a Sniffer egg would remain largely the same. Maybe instead of moss, placing the egg near lava or other warm blocks could speed up the process. The big changes come when the Snifflet is hatched. First, zombies and zombified piglins are now hostile to Sniffers and Sniffer eggs, mirroring their behavior towards turtles. This means the player needs to provide a degree of protection, either spawn-proofing the area or building an enclosure. Next, instead of healing from torchflower seeds, Sniffers would now eat from composters. This is a much more fitting choice. Rather than eating a specific item, the Sniffer absorbs nutrients from the essence of plants themselves. On one hand, as a creature from thousands of years ago, the Sniffer wouldn't have evolved to eat any specific plant found in the world. On the other, Sniffers requiring torchflower seeds is annoying. If your first Snifflet takes damage, you can't heal it until it grows up and digs a bunch of seeds. Occasionally, the Sniffer will decide it needs to eat and search for a composter. Depending on its health, it can eat from 1 to all 7 layers of compost. Removing the player's ability to directly feed a Sniffer further reinforces its identity as an endangered animal. Plus, giving them their own unique eating mechanic separates them from any other mob. Before I go over the final new features, let's first look at how we've changed a player's interaction with the Sniffer so far. With new plants available around the world, players who want to collect those items would build multiple Sniffer habitats across their world. Luckily, transporting a Sniffer is straightforward. Simply breed 2 of them together and bring the egg to a new biome. However, it's here that we run into another problem. To prevent players from putting Sniffers in just a tiny enclosure, Mojang programmed them to need more space. So when a Sniffer finds seeds, it saves those coordinates and won't dig there again. But once the Sniffer has saved 20 locations, those coordinates are erased and the Sniffer starts from scratch. In practice though, this is hardly effective. You can absolutely pack these guys in, and you'll still get seeds. So to encourage players to build proper habitats for their sniffers, the requirement for digging up seeds should be based on movement, not saved locations. Before a sniffer can attempt to find seeds, it would first need to traverse a certain amount of blocks since its last dig. So a sniffer that's been put in a tiny 20-block enclosure will take much longer to reach that quota than a sniffer that can freely roam. And the more sniffers you put in an enclosure, the larger it needs to be. This could also be applied to snifflets, requiring a certain amount of travel before they can grow into an adult. Now with this change, players aren't just putting their sniffers in a bunch of tiny boxes. They're encouraged to build proper homes for them. And for players who want to go the extra mile, this provides a great reason to build in biomes that you otherwise wouldn't. My final change is admittedly optional. Before a sniffer digs up seeds, it must also eat a layer of compost. Anyone who has let a sniffer roam freely in their base knows the benefit of this. Currently, there is no way to prevent a sniffer from digging, so if you have one hanging around, you will always find seeds around your base. Requiring a sniffer to first eat gives players a way to control this. Plus, refilling a composter can easily be automated. This is a much better execution of the sniffer's original concept. Players that delve into this feature would be repopulating the world with this extinct creature. In recent years, Mojang has shifted their mob design philosophy to be more focused on gameplay variety and education. With the mechanics of mobs like turtles and bees reflecting their real-world behavior, the sniffer would perhaps be the best example of wildlife conservation, with players unlocking some cool new plants for their efforts. I'm not going to get too in the weeds on what these new plants could be, but I have some broad ideas. While the alien, otherworldly look of torch flowers and pitcher plants is cool, the majority of these new items should be a little more reined in. One of the most popular ideas is letting the sniffer dig up the original rose flower, which could be found in flower forests or plains. In swamps, we could get water lilies, tiny lily pads with different flowers that can be placed like cherry petals or leaf litter, but on water. A new mushroom in dark forests, another fern in taigas, and tumbleweeds in badlands. Underground biomes could have bioluminescent plants, similar to glowberries. And hey, even a new wood type, maybe not grown from saplings, but an extinct mushroom, similar to fungus trees in the nether. Importantly, none of these features would be essential. Mojang has already tested something similar to this with the villager trade rebalance from a few years back, where librarian villagers offered different enchanted books depending on their biome. Many players didn't like this because it was assigning arbitrary rules to a crucial step in the game's progression. In that way, the sniffer is the perfect fit for a feature like this. Not only is it an optional side branch in progression, but there is a clear connection between the biome and what it unlocks. This is exactly what I have wanted out of the sniffer and would be ecstatic to see something like it implemented. And now, with the drop system, a rework like this seems more possible than ever. I'm curious to hear your feedback and ideas for more sniffer plants. If you could throw a like or a comment on the video, that would really help me out. If you haven't seen my last video going over the full history of Minecraft's music, check it out over here. See ya!